Yo, what's up, guys? It's your boy Fresh here, FJ React.
Then on the macho like Randy. The top go out to the granny. This nigga pull up your bandit. The killers understand it.
And today, we're gonna react to What Dying Feels Like by Shane. Almost 15 minutes, so we're gonna dive right on into this, get right on into it. Without further ado, let's go, bro. Hold on.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Yes, welcome back to another creepy video. Now, in today's video, I'm just warning you, we're going to be talking about something that most people are terrified of, and even just talking about it gives people anxiety, makes people not able to sleep. For me personally, it gives me a full-on panic attack. Today, we are going to be talking about what it feels like to die. So obviously, there are many different ways that you can die. Car crashes, house fires, drowning in a lake, falling out of a building, or even just dying naturally of old age.
I think I'm gonna do it.
And as terrified as I am of all of those things, I thought maybe it would make it less scary if I did some research and saw what it felt like to go through those. So before we start talking about what it feels like to fall out of a building or be burned alive, we're going to start with what it feels like to die naturally. Now, whether it's from a disease that slowly takes over your body, or it's just from being old and your body's slowly giving out, the process that somebody goes through as they are getting near death is all very similar. I know from firsthand, I was there pretty much the entire 2 weeks that my grandma was dying. So I got to witness firsthand what it was like and all the stages of death. And ever since then, I've been very fascinated by it. So here are all the signs that somebody is dying. So the first stage is loss of appetite, loss of energy, and lots of sleep. So as your body is slowly shutting down, it doesn't need food, it has no energy to do anything, and literally all it wants to do is sleep. So that stage is pretty obvious. The next stage is where it gets a little scary. And that's where we get into mental confusion and disorientation. So this is when your brain starts to trip out a little bit as your body is shutting down. Now, when I was next to my grandma as she was dying, she was saying very bizarre things that didn't make any sense. She was saying that she could see her dead husband, and she was talking to him as if he was real and still alive and in the room. And this is something that happens to pretty much everybody who's slowly dying. And what's even creepier is it's said that they feel like they need to plan for a trip. Like my grandma would say, like, oh, grab my eye drops, and oh, grab my purse, like I'm going somewhere. Because they are. They're planning for the biggest trip of all. So then the next stage is the death rattle. So if you haven't heard of this before, it sounds very, very scary, and it kind of is. This is where the person has a hard time breathing as they are dying, and it starts to make a very intense rattling noise. I remember when my grandma was making that noise, and we were all just like, what is going on? And her friend walked through the door and said, that's the death rattle. Now, as the person has the death rattle, and they are laying in their bed, and they're not really talking to anybody anymore, they have no energy, then something very strange happens, and that is the next stage, which is the final burst of energy. Now, right before a person dies, for some reason that doctors can't even really figure out, they get a burst of energy. They sit up, they look at you normally, they talk to you normally. They don't even know why they're in the hospital. They say they feel fine. They'll eat a full meal even though they haven't eaten in like a week. They'll say, I want to go home, get me out of here, I'm fine. The family members that are in the room usually get really excited. I remember I was like crying. I was just like, oh my God, she's not gonna die, my grandma's back. And then the doctor took me aside and told me, actually no, this is a bad sign, because when people are actually dying, they have a final burst of energy, and it's a phenomenon, and some people think that it is because God or the universe or whatever you believe in is letting the person say their final goodbyes and have a last meal with their family and spend some quality time with them before they go. Now, I did not want to believe this. I was like, no, she's fine, she's great, let's get her out of here. And then the next morning, she was not okay. And that leads us to the next stage, the death stare. So the next morning when I walked into my grandma's room, she was laying on the bed, she was staring at the ceiling, and her eyes were white. I don't even think I saw her blink for like hours. And her friend was there again, who told me about the death rattle, and she said, that's the death stare. Now this happens when the blood in the body stops circulating, the skin can get purple and cold, and the person will just stare up at the sky at nothing. Now my grandma didn't talk that whole day, and then the next morning, the Now this next stage is where it gets a little controversial, because when somebody naturally dies, they all have a very similar experience. As their body is completely shutting down, they see a light, and they reach out for it, and they say they see angels, and they see loved ones, and it's almost as if you're watching somebody literally go to heaven right in front of you. My grandma was reaching out and saying she could see her husband, and saying she could see a light, and then she took her last breath, and then died. Now this moment made my atheist uncle believe in God again. It was that incredible to watch. But then there's people who believe that it's science, and the facts do make sense. As the brain is shutting down, I mean, it's going crazy. The wiring is freaking out, and it creates a light, and it makes it feel like you're seeing the light, but in reality, it's just your brain triggering. I personally still believe that there's an afterlife, and that's what you're seeing, but scientists say that it's just your brain. Now, after you take your last breath and you are gone, I'm just warning you, if you're in the room with somebody who just died, turn your head, because when they are out, all of the muscles in their body relax, and it is terrifying. Not only do all of the muscles down here relax, but all of their face muscles relax, and their jaw literally drops and opens up to like, I can't even, it literally looks like the face.
Oh yeah, I would want to see that. It'd be
The doctor ran in right after that and like gauzed up my grandma's neck to keep everything together, and also all the muscles.
No, I would want to see that. Yo,
sphincter, which means that you
all the way like
shape yourself.
I wouldn't
But
want
at
to see
that point, you're
that.
dead,
Nah,
so you're not
son.
getting any fucks. So that is the process of dying in a hospital, naturally your body shutting down. Now we're going to talk about what
That
it feels
way,
like to die.
that way.
And first we're going to talk
It doesn't
about
seem too scary to me.
So drowning
Unless
is
you
something
actually
that's been
see, like you're the one seeing it and not.
And every time I watch
well,
it just gives me a panic attack.
Oh,
The
no.
thought of being trapped underwater and not being able to breathe and then slowly die as you suffocate to death, just thinking about it actually makes my whole body hurt. But what does it actually feel like to drown? Well, I did a lot of research.
I don't want to know,
and I have some
but
answers. So there's a couple ways you can get trapped underwater. Either you can't swim and you fall in, or there's something on top of you. Either way, let's just say you're trapped underwater. Now you can hold your breath for a while, but there
like
is
3-4
something
minutes, I
called
think it is.
now, at
Longer
the
if you
breaking point,
train.
your body, even though it knows that there's no air anywhere, it still forces you to try to take a breath. And when you take that breath, of course, your lungs fill with water. Now, for some people, that causes them to choke and cough, and all of that makes them slowly go unconscious, and then they die. But for a lot of people, that doesn't happen. Some people breathe in the water, they don't cough or choke, and then it fills their lungs, and supposedly it feels like an incredible burning sensation. It feels like your whole chest and stomach is on fire. Then after the burning sensation takes over, you slowly slip into unconsciousness. And some survivors of drowning have said that it feels almost like you are slowly falling asleep on the softest bed ever. And then as you are almost asleep, your heart stops. Now on to another way to die, which is
son.
and that is being burned alive. Now, whether you're being burned at the stake like a witch, or whether you're trapped in your house that's on fire, there's a lot of different ways that you can burn alive. But here's one interesting thing about it. Some people actually die before the fire even touches them. You can get carbon monoxide poisoning from the smoke, which is usually extremely heavy, especially in a house fire. And that just knocks you out and you're gone. If you haven't been killed yet by the smoke inhalation, then another way that you might have already died is by heat stroke, because your body temperature has been raised so high that it makes everything shut down. But here's the scariest thing. Your body can burn for 7 hours because of all the fat which is active.
7 hours?
Could literally be burning for 7 hours. But hopefully you are out.
That's like a whole school day.
Okay, so the next way to die
From-
we're going to talk
from the time
about
you get
is
to-
being buried alive. Now I have seen
to the
this
time
in
you
a lot of
leave
movies.
school that
Every
day.
time I'm in the theater watching it, I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I need to get out of the theater and go into fresh air. Now first let's talk about how to survive if you're buried alive. Now the amount of oxygen you have in your coffin or your box is about 7 hours worth. So specialists say that you should be taking slow, shallow breaths, don't have a panic attack because that will use up more air, and just keep your body calm. That way if somebody is looking for you, they have a chance to save you because you have 7 hours. Now let's talk about what happens after 7 hours. Because you've ran out of air, you are slowly slipping into an unconscious state, and then your heart stops, and then you die. So that one probably feels similar to drowning. Now there are some deaths that are very fast. I mean, for example, decapitation. There are rumors that you can still be alive for like 5 to 6 seconds after you're decapitated, but a lot of scientists think that
Oh,
that's
that
not true, and it's
wasn't
just
showing the
muscles in
guillotine.
your
That was
body,
actually
you know,
someone chopping their
slowly
head
shutting
off.
down.
But
there was a
the
study
guillotine,
years ago where
same
they
thing.
cut somebody's head off and then he blinked like But either way, I'm pretty sure that you don't feel anything. Now, the final death we're going to talk about is one of my biggest fears. But I always felt comfortable with it because of this thing.
Was it torture or?
So we're going to be talking about dying from falling out of a building. So you've seen this in plenty of movies.
Oh no! But don't you?
Airplanes falling from high places. And I'm sure you've all heard the same thing. Oh, your body dies before it even hits the ground.
I thought that was true.
I've said that in the video.
It's true, right?
The thought is that, oh, you know, it's so intense, it's so traumatic that your heart stops before you hit the ground. Or your body can't take the pressure of falling,
like
so it just dies before it hits the ground. And I found out that that is not true.
What?
That is a myth that we have all made up as a society because we just don't want to think about the actual reality of falling from a high place and seeing the ground. Scientists have come out and said, no, that is just a myth. Which I guess makes sense when you think about it, because wouldn't all parachuters die? I mean, they're falling from a really high place. They're falling from a fucking plane. Wouldn't their heart give out? Their heart doesn't know that there's a fucking parachute about to explode. So here's where it gets kind of crazy.
Yeah, okay, see, okay, it makes sense. You made a point.
As you're falling to the ground, your body gets increasingly heavier. It gets to 7,500 times your actual weight because of the rate.
Whoa, we're gonna do the calculation on that.
The ground, your brain alone weighs 10 tons. So basically what that means is the second you hit the ground, you are gone. All of your blood vessels have exploded, your heart's exploded, your brain's exploded. I mean, it is just instant.
We're doing the calculation on that. Calculating. So I'm still listening.
Probably see that last second of ground before you're out. Now, some people think that if you're falling from a high place, you should try to fall into water. Maybe that will save you.
That would get hard. It'll feel like concrete.
If you are falling from a high enough place, water can feel like concrete. I mean, just imagine when you're jumping off a diving board into a pool and like you fall on your leg or your stomach. How much?
165. That's how much I weigh.
Super high up. Okay, so now that we've talked about the scariest parts of death, I wanted to talk about something. Now, as you guys know,
that's how much my body would weigh in pounds if I was falling.
And for me personally, talking about death makes death less scary to me. I like talking about stuff that freaks me out because then it just desensitizes me a little bit. And a while ago, I found this YouTuber who I just fucking fell in love with. And she talks about death all the time and very much makes you feel more comfortable with it. Her name is Claire Wineland and her channel is The Clarity Project. So she's 19 years old and she has cystic fibrosis and she's very honest about her condition and things that she's going through. And for those of you who don't know, cystic fibrosis is incredibly serious and, as she puts it, fatal. But even in this condition, she is probably the most badass YouTuber I've ever fucking seen.
Power to her.
So I'm dying.
Well, that was straightforward.
Faster than everyone else.
Yeah, like, fuck, my queen. Now, she makes so many incredibly interesting videos. She's talked about what it's like to be in a coma, tips for interacting with a sick person, how oxygen tubes work, and of course, coming to terms with death. But she also does it in a very, like, funny, casual way.
Someone asked me, like, you know, like what I was gonna do after school and all this, and I was getting really into, like, these stuff that I was doing with my life and things I was really excited about, and then my friend Revere goes, wait, aren't you supposed to die in a few months? It's like, oh, right.
Bruh.
Thanks.
I know.
Don't listen to him, bro.
Now listen, this is
Just
not
live
a product
until
placement. She's not
you know your last breath. Just how you live. Just live.
I just fucking love the idea of a YouTuber talking about shit like that.
The power to her, bro. Power to her.
Making it feel normal. Because dying is fucking normal. So I thought it would be nice after doing this scary video where I talk about how fucking scary it is to die, if I also give you guys some tips on, you know, how to get more comfortable with the idea so you're not fucking terrified. Now, she said it best in her video called Dying 101. I'll link it down in the description. Here's just a little clip of it.
I suggest actually mentally walk through your own death. Just the feeling of actually realizing that you are going to die right now, and then go through that in your head. And the more you do it, the more you think about it, the more you realize, oh, I really am going to be gone one day. The less it scares you, and the more comfortable you become with the topic. And then when you're comfortable with the topic, other people will become comfortable with the topic, and then we'll stop being such losers afraid of something completely normal.
So yeah, I agree.
There's a point. She
has
a good point.
Make it seem less scary, and maybe that's another reason why I love doing these videos. Or maybe I'm delusional, and it is still terrifying, and we're not going to sleep at night because we're going to be thinking about burning alive. Either way, I enjoyed it. Well, there you guys go.
Alright, so yeah guys, that was Shane's video called What Dying Feels Like, you know. It wasn't too scary on the natural one, you know, unless you actually seen it, you know. The other ones, of course, they're gonna be scary, but I can't stop death. It's gonna happen one day. It's gonna happen one day. It can happen today if it wants to. It can happen in 75 years. I do not know, but it will happen. But anyways, yeah, I am out of this place. You know, so my camera's dying, and I'm gonna get out. Peace.